This episode is dedicated to Carrie Fisher. No one will ever be her equal, and she will forever be missed.
Hokey Religion is an ancient weapon. No match for a good blaster, you say.
Welcome to Hokey Religion, the Star Wars podcast. This is Tyler.
This is Michael.
And it's been a really shitty day.
It's been a really shitty day. Really bad year.
If you're listening to this when it came out, that would be on a Monday. We are recording this on the night that of the day that it was, I guess, announced. Not really announced. That's a bad word. That it was.
It wasn't announced.
that the story broke that Carrie Fisher has passed away.
Yep.
That sucks.
Yeah, and this was just No, it was Christmas Day. Was it? It was
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve. Yeah, that she had the heart attack.
Christmas Eve, she had a heart attack. For anyone that hasn't followed, if you've not been on the internet or turned on a television or turned on the radio, then I don't know how you would. I mean, that's...
Is it on the radio too?
Probably been everywhere. Carrie Fisher had a massive heart attack on a plane from London to
LA,
I think. She had a massive heart attack and was... I think they did CPR for about 15 minutes.
Something like that.
She was unresponsive for 15 minutes while CPR was administered, which is never a good sign.
Right.
Because usually there's brain damage at that point.
Right.
And then we heard, I guess, by Christmas or later that from her mother, Debbie Reynolds, that she was stable.
Yeah.
That's the last thing that anyone heard was that she was stable.
And then today,
and then a couple days later, it was announced that she had passed.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's... Really, I was talking about this beforehand, but no celebrity death has affected me the way that this has, and that was very unexpected.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenny Baker passed away this year. I mean, there's been a lot of amazing people that have passed away this year that I couldn't even name.
Right.
2016's been really crappy in that way, among all the other crap. But Carrie Fisher, especially, I mean, like Kenny Baker, we knew he had health issues and he wasn't doing well, and it wasn't as much of a surprise as Carrie Fisher, who was just filming episode 8, who seemingly has been okay.
Right.
And then just, surprise heart attack. And then we've lost probably one of the most important people in like my entire life of like affecting my life.
Yeah.
Especially because, I mean, we have a Star Wars podcast and we talk and make jokes, but that movie has... I mean, as most people who probably listen to this, that series has affected my entire childhood and my life and the things that I am drawn to and care about today.
Right.
And she was a almost daily part of my childhood because I watched the original trilogy almost every single day of my entire childhood.
Every day during breakfast, right?
Pretty much. It was a bowl of cereal and
Yeah.
one of the original trilogy films.
Yeah.
And, knowing that she's been fine and she was in episode 7 and she was, I believe, done filming episode 8, it doesn't really matter at this point.
Yeah.
And then for her to suddenly be gone and for us not to have any more of her is a very sad thought.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember watching the first several times I saw A New Hope, her like mouthing off to Tarkin, and then when Luke comes into her cell later, she's just like hanging out.
Yeah, she's just like chilling on the,
like,
laying down with her
like that
head in her hand, like
right.
lounging.
And then, in Empire with all the shit happening in that movie, she's like pretty calm and collected through the whole thing. And I don't know, like that character is just so, just knows how to handle shit.
Well, that
right.
character would not have been that character without Carrie Fisher.
Yes. But that's what I'm saying is that character just knows how to handle things right, knows how to, react to all the shit going on around her. And that is Carrie Fisher. Like she, the mental health issues that she has dealt with and was still dealing with, the drug addictions, all of that stuff. Her life as a child of an insanely popular actress, like that usually alone will screw up.
Yeah. And I mean, and
kids.
that's one thing I've loved about Carrie Fisher is Like, she is fully upfront and brutally honest and doesn't shy away from joking about anything.
Right.
Like, everything can be made fun of
Right.
because you'd rather laugh about it than cry about it.
Yeah.
Type of thing. And, she's been brutally honest about all of her problems, about pretty much anything that she talks about. If you've never heard her speak live, I was able to see her at the last time Star Wars Celebration was in Orlando. And the one day I got to go to, the panel that night was I guess it was called like A Date with the Princess.
Oh, nice.
And it was Carrie Fisher. Just a talk with Carrie Fisher for like an hour and a half or whatever it was. And if you haven't seen videos of her talking at like celebrations or things like that, she is hilarious. If you've never read anything she's written, she has books and stuff. She is extremely funny. She's extremely witty.
Watch the roast of... No, it's not. It wasn't even a roast. It was... George Lucas was receiving an award. It was like a whole... not a ceremony, I guess. It was like an award ceremony dedicated to him, like a Lifetime Achievement Award, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It might have been that. I don't know exactly what the award was, but she came on and did like basically a roast of George in front of everybody. And it is amazing. It's so funny. Yeah. You have to watch it.
Well, it's like I was watching a thing today, just looking at Carrie Fisher videos, and she was just on like a Channel 6 news interview. It was like ABC. Yeah. And it was just with a news person. And like she's talking, and
it was
you can
Good
hear
Morning America, wasn't it?
Something like that. You can hear like the camera crews in the background laughing, and she's like making jokes at the interviewee, like the interviewer's like expense. Yeah. And everyone's laughing, and like someone of that fame and stature is not usually one to just shoot the shit and be she didn't care.
Right. It was funny during that the interviewer was trying to ask her kind of pretty typical softball questions, and she was like calling her out on it and like getting really deep. Like, which totally threw the interviewer off.
She has a way of being she had a way of being extremely serious while still being extremely sarcastic and biting. Right. And her wit was amazing, and it's a big loss. Mm-hmm. But I think it would only be appropriate for us not to focus on the sadness of losing Carrie Fisher. I think she would only want us to continue on making jokes and laughing and having fun, because that's what she was always about. Yep. So I'm going to take a drink to Carrie Fisher.
I'm not going to do a shot live, but I'll watch you do it.
I'm going to do one for Carrie Fisher.
I'll talk about it while you're doing it. And he took a shot.
Yep, did it. Done. Good. So...
All right, so
back to
Star
happy
Wars
things. We've got jokes and happiness coming your way.
Yeah,
there's
up
some
here
still
on the
left
next
in
hour,
our
half
empty
hour.
souls.
Is that how it usually goes on the radio?
What?
Up here on the next hour and half hour. Is that what they say?
This 30 minutes of commercial-free music is brought to you by these next 30 minutes of commercials. That's what happens, right? That's pretty much,
they just get them all out of the way right up front.
All of them, so that you turn the station and never hear the commercial-free music. And I love how they remind you that it's a commercial-free music while the music, like, in between songs. Yeah. Like, by the way, this is still commercial-free. And it usually takes them, about just as long to explain that. Yeah. As it does a commercial. Instead of a commercial coming on, like, this is Al's Barn House where you buy the barns for your house. And, like, you can do a commercial.
Al's Barn House?
Yeah, I don't know. What is Al sells barns for your house? You don't have a barn?
Seems like a business that couldn't last very long.
You don't have a house barn?
I don't see a lot of people buying barns for their houses.
Everybody's got a house barn.
No. It's not a house barn. This is a barn that goes inside your house, right?
See, it's Al's Barn House because he's selling barns for your house. Yes. But, like, the place is called Al's Barn House, but he sells barns for your house.
But does he sell them out of a barn house?
Yes.
Barns for your house sold out of a barn house.
Yeah, it's Al's Barn House.
Because that's two different things, right? A barn for your house is not a barn
barns
house.
for your house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's two different things.
Very complicated.
I need to talk to Al. This is doesn't seem like a sustainable business model.
What's Al got to do but build barns for houses?
What else does he have to do?
You. Good old...
His marriage fell apart a while ago.
Good old Al. Too many barns.
It's just too many barns. I mean, a marriage can only take so many barns.
She said, one more barn, Al, and I'm out of this barn house.
And what did she find a week later?
She
Another
she
goddamn
took half his
barn.
barns and left.
She took the barns. That really hit his business pretty hard.
Yeah, it was
Taking
just,
all those barns.
it was,
I mean, it's not easy to build a barn, especially a barn for a house.
especially in this economy.
Like all those barn pieces.
You mean wood? Boards?
Yes, that's all those barn pieces don't come cheap.
All right, Pa, I got all the barn pieces out of the forest. Let's build a barn.
Gunter, you goddamn idiot! That's just wood, you fucking moron!
Oh, Pa, I was trying to sound fancy like them city folk.
Gunter, get your fucking ass back in the house, you stupid shit!
What redneck names his son Gunther? Just like rednecks that moved to Germany and are now living in the countryside building barns.
No, that's Gunter. This is Gunther.
It's still pretty.
It's not
I've never heard of a redneck Gunther, and I'm from Florida. I should know.
Don't critique my bet.
All right, Paul.
I'm yes-anding you.
You have to announce your yes ands.
Yes and.
Oh, Paul. Yes and.
Anyway, what are we talking about
I
today?
think we talk about Star Wars on this show.
Oh yeah.
That or Gremlins.
Not barn houses.
Yeah.
Do I need to talk about Gremlins again?
Nope.
I have more Gremlins news.
There was Gremlins news, guys.
Gremlins 3. It's
All right,
coming.
So you can talk about Gremlins 3 for just a little bit.
Okay, so Gremlins 3 is coming. And all right, that's it.
No, the best part of that news is that
Oh yeah.
the actor was talking about how, or somebody was talking about
was the
how
actor.
it took 6 years for them to make the film, and this was the
Gremlins 2.
Gremlins 2, and that was the best idea they could come up with.
Yes. So
6
apparently
years.
they had several ideas for like the setting and the story of Gremlins 2.
Yeah.
They started on a couple of them already.
Sure, why not?
Or started on a few and then figured out, all right, this isn't working. So they ended up
Making Gremlins 2.
making what we see in Gremlins 2. Like that was the best option.
That was the best last idea that they had.
That was the best option out of everything that they could have come up with.
Sure.
All
why
those
not?
characters, all that junk.
Yeah. Vegetable gremlins.
Not acceptable.
Bat gremlins.
Nope. All of that stuff.
Spider gremlins. Science gremlin. Flasher gremlin.
Was
Slut
there-
gremlin.
Was there a science gremlin? Oh, the
Yeah,
smart one.
Yeah, the brainy
smart
gremlin.
one,
The one
yeah.
with the glasses who sang New York, New York.
Was he a scientist? Or was he just a smart gremlin?
He was from the lab, so...
Did he ever actually do any kind of science? I don't remember.
He did talk about smart...
All I saw
He
was
did talk about science things
in
at
the
one point.
interview. And then the song.
Oh, yeah, he was on that news, like,
Remember
couch
he did
interview.
the interview.
Jeez.
And he talked like this. And he was talking really fast. Blah, 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 blah.
I lost so many brain cells watching that film.
It's pretty awful. So, yeah. We're getting Gremlins 3.
Some point in the future, we will
So
have Gremlins 3.
great. So just let that sink in for a second.
So by now, hopefully everyone has had time to see Rogue One once, twice, 3 times. Maybe.
I've seen it twice.
I have seen it still just the one time. I traveled for various holiday events and have not get to see it again.
I don't think I'm going to see it again in theaters. I think I'm going to wait until...
Well, my wife hasn't
Comes
seen
out.
it, and she said she wants to, but we'll see if that happens. So I would
Yeah, that
like to
was
go
my-
again and take her.
That was my second time.
Ooh. Okay. Locker room talk.
Wife.
So she, I want to take her and see it again. Michael has got to see it again, but hopefully everyone else has had a chance to, because we're still going to talk about it, and hopefully
It was a Blu-ray
this is the
coming out.
warning for. This is the last episode. We're going to give you a spoiler warning on talking about Rogue One. From this point forward, we will speak about things in Rogue One, and if you have not seen it and care about not spoiling things, then
I mean, it's
We'll
not
even
a
come
Rogue
back.
One podcast from here on out. This is
No,
just... We're
but
saying we're going to...
from this point forward in the rest of our episodes, if we are going to mention things without warning you about Rogue One randomly. So go see it, you dummy. The end. So the Death Star.
when the Blu-ray comes out.
Huh?
Has that been announced yet?
Probably not. It probably won't be until like March
Hold
or
on, let me see. There's some product pages up here.
April, maybe.
Really? That late? I don't
think
think
that
so,
far?
right?
And I wonder too. You know
The
how
pre-orders
are
are up on Target.
You know how the
right now.
the Disney movies have been releasing to Netflix almost simultaneous with their like DVD Blu-ray releases. Like,
Have they?
Jungle Book's already on there, the new one
That was because of a deal that Netflix signed recently.
with Disney.
Yes.
Yes.
But they're not, it's not,
Does that count for other Disney properties like Star Wars, or is it just strictly Disney Animation?
I think they are
or
actually going to
Pixar?
have the Star Wars movies up on Netflix eventually.
So that was my question. If Rogue One, whenever it comes out on DVD, will it hit Netflix as well around the same time? Is it part of that deal that Disney made with their animated or whatever you call them movies?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what production house.
It's estimated for April, but I don't know. That seems far off.
See, I mean, well, December, January, February, March, April, 4 months. That's about right.
I don't know. It just seems far off.
Yeah, I don't know why we're talking about the Blu-ray coming out when the movie's still in theaters, so thanks for that. So the Death Star, we had more things to talk about the Death Star after thinking about it, after reading some more of Catalyst. I'm not finished with it still. I'm more than halfway through, but it's really good. If you haven't read Catalyst and you've seen Rogue One, it's a really good prequel to the film.
Well, maybe you can answer this first question then. So, Tarkin... What, you cannot answer this question?
Sorry.
Well, at least let me ask it so we can make a podcast.
Nah. Next.
All right, well,
No.
nobody knows what we're talking
no,
about.
So Tarkin.
Well, Krennic talked about it first, and then Tarkin mentioned that the firepower of the Death Star is variable.
Yes.
They can fire a single reactor shot, which is what we saw in Rogue One. Those
so they
two
did the
shots.
test shot on Jeddah. I don't know if they mentioned the reactor
For
capacity
Scarif.
on the first one. Or no, for Jeddah.
Yes,
Did
they
he
did.
mention-
They said single reactor.
And then Tarkin
Krennic
said it
said.
again for Scarif as
Yes,
well.
right.
So those single reactor shots were just like, let's destroy half of the planet and then have this giant tidal wave of crap.
It was almost
Wave
like
over. It's almost
like the
like a-
power of a nuke.
Well, like a double nuke because it destroyed like a hemisphere.
Oh no, it wasn't that bad. It was a pretty contained
Did
blast.
we ever get a wide shot of the planet after?
No.
So I'm
No,
trying
we
to
never
think,
saw
just
the full damage.
The size of that wave, like that blast wave,
Yeah.
it almost seemed large enough to destroy a hemisphere.
No,
At
I don't.
least.
I don't think so. I don't think
I mean,
it was
depending
that.
on the size of the planet.
It was almost like a nuke, like a bunker buster nuke, like something
Yes.
that buried itself deep under the crust and then exploded. You know, like it wasn't just exploded on the surface. You know what I mean?
It's almost like it didn't explode the core, but like exposed the core.
I don't think it got that
type
far.
thing. Maybe not that far.
No.
Just enough to wreck shit.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
It was definitely huge. I mean, you could see on Scarif after they shot, you could see the shockwave when they were looking at it from the Death Star. You could see it like expanding
Yeah.
across the planet, but it wasn't wiping out the whole hemisphere.
Yeah, I guess so.
You
Maybe.
know. But anyway, the power is variable. Obviously, we see the full power with Alderaan. That's the only time we see the full
Maybe.
power of the Death Star.
He says we'll show you the full power of this battle station, but is that the maximum power needed just to destroy Alderaan? Or is that the full maximum power
This
of
is
the Death
back
Star?
to your argument.
Shut up. Yes. That's what I'm wondering. He said, we'll show you the full power. Like, we can destroy planets, sure. Why
Yeah.
not?
Right.
But is that actually... Because I don't know how many reactors there are that... This is our Star Wars podcast where we forget important things about Star Wars.
Well, I don't know.
Aren't there like 4 reactors, I want to say?
I don't know. You're making that up.
I want to say there's 4, but I could be totally wrong.
Death Star tech specs? That's not right, is it?
Looking like the spec guide on the Death Star.
Blueprint?
I'm sure we have a cross section of the Death Star. from
Cross
the
section.
book.
That's the word I'm
There
looking
you
for.
go. So okay, maybe they only have to use 3 reactors to destroy Alderaan, and not just the one that does like a crap. Let's destroy almost half a planet. Is that the full power? Because again, back to my argument of the power of the Death Star. If they can destroy Alderaan, I'm sure they could also destroy planets much larger than Alderaan.
You would think so, yeah.
Because, what is it? Every planet in our solar system can fit inside Jupiter, right? If I remember correctly.
Something like that.
So Jupiter is goddamn big. So if the Death Star could destroy Earth, would it also be able to destroy Jupiter? even though it is
How big was Alderaan?
freaking giant. Well, this is back to the argument before of Yavin 4. I believe it was Yavin 4 is like giant compared to Alderaan. Like it could fit multiple Alderaans inside of it.
And they were getting ready to destroy
and they
that.
were getting ready to destroy that. So
Well,
you wouldn't blast Alderaan with the same amount of power as you would Yavin 4, right?
Well, Yavin 4 was the moon. So are you talking about...
Maybe I'm just thinking about Yavin Prime.
Yeah, are you thinking... Because they weren't
So I
going
guess
to...
they were going to destroy the moon. So could they destroy Yavin Prime?
I don't know.
That's my question. What can and
What
cannot
is the full
Death Star
power?
destroy?
Yeah.
At what point does the Death Star not become like a hurt star, a pain star? I don't know what to call it.
Not just a...
Not a Death Star. It's just like an ouchie, an ouchie star.
Ouchie star.
It doesn't roll off the tongue very
No,
well.
not really.
So, anyways, they do single reactor shots on Jeddah and Scarif, and your question, I believe, was based off of Kyber crystals.
Well, yeah, so... This is why I was asking about Catalyst. It's probably explaining Catalyst, but are the Kyber crystals focusing agents for the power generated by the
I've not
reactors?
made it through Catalyst.
Okay. Or are they storing energy? Because from what I understand, I mean, Kybers are used in lightsabers to focus the energy into a beam that loops around.
Yes.
Right? And they're connected to the Force, so it gives the Jedi it's their connection to their saber, right?
Yeah.
But lightsabers have power cells. Like that's
Yes.
what actually powers the lightsaber. So I assume...
Well, it's like the Kyber almost like increases the power put into it.
Okay.
Like it focuses and like multiplies the power put into it.
Okay. I think that makes sense
Part
from
of
what
Catalyst I got to was so at this point Galen has his own research facility for a renewable energy facility, you know, that was created by the Emperor to, you know, provide renewable energy or whatever energy to the lesser planets, obviously under the guise of doing research for the weapon for the Death Star. Galen doesn't know that. Krennic does. But there are also branch facilities that Galen doesn't know about, that all of his research data is getting passed to these other facilities to try to weaponize his research.
Interesting.
So Galen's doing like this power research while all of his tests and various things are getting passed to other facilities to also test, but for known
Behind his
purposes
back?
of weapons.
Behind his back.
Yes.
Wow.
And
okay.
one of these, like I think one of the last points I got to was Galen, or one of these other facilities, like went nuclear, basically trying to perform one of his tests on a giant kyber crystal, and when they shot the power into it, it basically created a death laser that blew up the facility and destroyed this entire city.
Jeez.
All the main scientists got out before everything went nuclear, but it destroyed a giant city, and they just kind of had to brush it under the rug and come up with some fake news reason as to what happened. Because Galen's research and his notes are like totally crap because he's a crazy person. He's so smart that his research notes make no sense to anyone but himself.
Right.
And they were trying to follow his tests, and his shorthand and everything just did not make sense to anybody else.
Gotcha.
That was the last point I was at. So it's like you can put energy into a kyber, and it outputs at a so much multiplied rate compared to what's put in.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's like providing some of these lesser planets with power.
It's like an amplification.
Yeah, so that's part of
deal.
Galen's research was providing. You don't have to have a lot to put into a kyber, but then you could provide so much more power out of a kyber by putting in just a little.
Okay.
So that these smaller and less wealthy planets could have, planet-wide power just from a little bit, and it being far less costly to power everything.
Interesting. Okay.
So I don't know what of the Death Star is powered by kybers. Is everything on the Death Star powered by kybers?
No, because they've got the main reactor that handles.
It's just the weapons powered by kybers.
Pull up the.
And I'm sure there's.
They've got
kybers are used in focusing as well. But
power
probably also in
generators.
the output.
They've got a giant power generator on it. I think that's the. So
Power.
you remember the in the second Death Star, that big chamber that they fly into at the end, where they're shooting like the actuators and that little whatever that thing is, the generator in the middle.
Yeah.
Generator tower, I think they call it, or something like that.
Was that not a reactor?
That's the main power generator and the hypermatter reactor.
Okay.
In that chamber there. In the Death Star 2, it's a lot bigger and there's more parts.
Well, yeah, it's way bigger.
That's what that is. So
Okay.
that's used for everything as far as I know.
Okay.
I wonder if that means if like the lights dim across the Death Star when they fire the laser.
Everything starts to flicker.
It's like when you like...
I imagine the scene from Mary Poppins when the crazy neighbor blasts the cannons and they have to brace everything in their house.
It's all those chandeliers in the Death Star are swinging, and
all those chandeliers.
all the picture frames are
have
off,
to
and
grab the grandfather clock 'cause it's falling over.
and the grand piano slides down the hallway.
Yeah.
They have to catch that
Those-
every shot.
yeah, they have to give a warning.
Boosts, everyone!
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I've not seen that since I was probably 10. Yet still clear as day.
Yes.
Yeah, that. It's really funny.
So the lights probably dim, and
Yeah. So, how many reactors are there? Did you find that?
no. I can't.
So they have single reactor shots. How many reactors are actually used to destroy Alderaan, and are there more than enough to destroy something like Yavin Prime? I
Yeah.
still have that argument of how powerful is the Death Star actually.
Well, I think what we had talked about last time we had this discussion was, I think there's plenty of power to at least destabilize.
Because you're just
a
trying to
core.
at that point you're just trying to what? Just blow the core, right?
Well, like with like say Alderaan, for example, it completely obliterated the whole planet.
Well,
There
didn't it,
wasn't just like
doesn't it basically?
it didn't
just-
destabilize the planet. It obliterated
Well,
it.
doesn't it
completely.
basically just like overload the planet's core and just explode it from within?
Something like that. But I mean, like to your point, for a different size core, a much bigger core.
I guess to get through that much more Earth, it doesn't really matter as much,
Well, I don't know. I mean,
depending on the makeup of a planet.
for a bigger core, can you have that same type of reaction, or does it require more energy to make that reaction?
I don't know.
What we were saying last time, what I was trying to make the point of, was that for stars, like which was what we were talking about last time, you could at least destabilize it. And for a star, you can probably it might eventually go supernova,
Yeah.
right? And with a planet, yeah, maybe you could destabilize the core and it'll eventually, I don't know, collapse on itself or something. Maybe not completely obliterate it, but
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Oh well.
Oh well.
I will still hope that the Death Star.
That's what this show is for, is to talk about this kind of stuff that nobody else
Shitty.
cares about.
Third time that we've talked about it. So the other great thing about the Death Star that we were talking about was the actual flaw. Not that wasn't really a flaw, but the porthole that was in A New Hope was, there was this port in this trench that you would blast to blow up the Death Star.
So all we've had up until now is there was just a flaw.
Yeah.
There was something overlooked, basically,
And it
in
showed
the plans
in their
for the Death Star.
plans, you shoot in the hole and it goes through to the middle and it blows
Yeah,
it
beep,
up.
beep, 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 a little
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And
Asteroids.
it goes to the middle and it blows it up because there's a thing in the middle that blows it up.
beep, beep, beep.
But now we know that
Pac-Man graphics.
that flaw wasn't inherent, like it wasn't an accident. It was purposeful. It was created.
Right, but what we know now is
The port was the access to the flaw, not the flaw itself.
yes. So the ports were completely normal, the exhaust ports.
Yes.
And those were just exhaust ports for like the core.
The port was put there purposefully. I don't know if you saw that.
By who?
So in the actual novelization of Rogue One, there are these almost like communique, like space emails,
Yeah.
like sections.
Right.
And there's like Galen had one of his scientists like submit a request for these like porthole locations.
Okay.
And it was like bureaucracy, like, we don't care, just do whatever. Just do it. Fine. And
Okay.
Galen like had the final say of where it went.
Yeah.
And so the creation of the porthole was purposeful. But the porthole in and of itself was not the flaw.
It was the access to the flaw.
Yes.
Right.
Which was some kind of chain reaction that he built to destroy all of... It was basically like a kill switch. Like if one reactor gets hit, right? If it wasn't like if one reactor gets hit, they all blow. It
was something about if any kind of instability is introduced, like if they trigger an explosion for this one module somehow, it would set off a chain reaction that would blow the
explosion
up the reactor.
That them shooting a proton torpedo into the porthole. And that explosion did not destroy the Death Star.
It was any kind of...
That explosion kicked off Galen's kill switch for the Death Star, which did this chain reaction that killed the entire Death Star.
Right.
Basically didn't make all of the reactors basically like overload or explode.
Yeah. Right. It was somebody... I saw somebody compare it to like if you shot a bullet up your exhaust port. Like that in and of itself wouldn't kill your car.
Yeah.
But this thing that he had, this instability or this module or whatever it was,
this chain reaction,
he made it unstable enough that it would be like, it would trigger enough explosions to explode your gas tank and blow up your entire car.
Yes.
That's basically what it was. So having the exhaust pipe there wasn't the problem necessarily. It was them overlooking or trusting Galen too much, basically, and not checking his work or not really...
Correct.
Maybe not even understanding his work enough.
Yeah, that's probably more likely that they thought they had him on their side at that point.
Yeah.
And also didn't understand what the hell he was doing to make everything work anyways.
I assume. Yeah.
And that's part of if you read Catalyst is Krennic has so much, like he's so self-important. And all of this is his plan. Yeah. And him bringing Galen into everything is all him.
Yeah.
And he's the best. And, my plan went perfectly and Galen's now doing what we want, so all's good and I win. Right. And then he doesn't care after that point and he's not paying attention anymore.
Right.
And he has no idea what's going on behind his back because he's too busy gloating on,
He gets wrapped up in all the bureaucracy. Like he's trying to climb that ladder.
He's fighting with Tarkin.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always this power struggle with him and Tarkin and Catalyst. They talk and like they both have different positions. No one's higher than the other, really. I guess Tarkin's a Grand Moff at the point I'm at in the book, and no one really even knows what a Grand Moff means at this point. Even Tarkin says he still prefers himself to be called Governor Tarkin.
Well, in Rogue One, he says... I can't remember the line exactly, but he basically tells Krennic that he's now not qualified for promotion, or he's not qualified to handle the Death Star, which is why Tarkin decides to take it over.
Yes.
Because of all these security leaks, which I'm sure was Tarkin's plan all along.
Probably.
To do that. But that's where Galen was trying to, Krennic, where Krennic was trying to head. Was to become the director, like basically what Tarkin was for the Death Star.
Yeah, what Tarkin took over at that point, because Tarkin's way smarter than Krennic, and Tarkin knows he's as good as he says he is, whereas Krennic just says he's good and is not as good as he says he is.
Right. Well, he's impressive in that he can
manipulate people. But not the same way Tarkin.
And it goes into this in Catalyst, where Lyra is wondering about him at some point. And she's wondering whether or not he got to where he is because he just kind of manipulated people, or he got, had some lucky.
Yeah, I don't know if you got to that part either, but it was talking about him getting through it wasn't the academy, but whatever engineers school they went through.
The Corps of Engineers.
And basically, like, even getting through school, like, he just was basically project lead on things.
Right.
He wasn't necessarily doing the actual work. He was more so just getting people to do.
So he's very good at making it look like things were his ideas and manipulating people, like what we're saying.
Yeah. But he's got so wrapped up in being self-important that he's not really paying attention to what's actually happening.
Right.
And he just assumes like, oh, I got him to do what I wanted, so he's doing it now. Right. Not like I should probably follow up to make sure he's actually doing what I'm telling him to do. But like we said, there's also that level of no one knows what Galen's doing because only Galen understands what he's doing.
And apparently Krennic has manipulated people enough to not have anyone looking over his back.
Yes.
You know, where like Vader is like completely hands off. Obviously,
Well, yeah.
Tarkin seems very
Tarkin's
keeping
wrapped up in other
Krennic.
things.
Yeah, like keeping Krennic at an arm's distance. Like he's
He
not
doesn't
really
like him.
involved.
He's dirty. Like he doesn't like
Right.
Krennic. He's like, I don't want to. I don't trust him. I don't think he's gonna be able to get this to work anyways. Like,
Right.
Tarkin even seems. He even seems. In Catalyst, he's even like writing off the Death Star. He doesn't think it's going to work.
Yeah. I mean, even when in Rogue One, we see he's standing on the Death Star.
Yeah.
Right before the
And
test.
he doesn't trust him that the weapon.
And he doesn't believe it's going to
anything.
work.
And then once he
Yeah.
saw it, he was like, okay, we've got
Okay,
something
yeah,
now.
maybe now it's mine.
And that's yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it works. Okay, it's mine.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. So Tarkin was even like that, and the only thing that Krennic was good at is he got on Masameta's good side,
yes.
and kind
Right.
of was able to work him,
Which was his way to the Emperor.
yes. At least the point I'm at, he's had no interaction with the Emperor directly. It's all been with Masameta and getting approval through him, and basically convincing Masameta to let him do things.
Masameta is the Emperor's right-hand man.
Because he's now the like.
He used to be the Chancellor's advisor or something.
Yeah, but now he's like the Grand Vizier.
Yes. Yeah.
So he's basically getting permission or convincing Masameta to let him do things and set up these various research stations and look into the weapons and all of that,
Right.
but not following up on on any of it far enough than he needs to be.
So everyone was just kind of just wrapped up in themselves.
Well, they're wrapped up in the war that
Basically.
just ended, and now they're trying to control everything while Krennic's trying to follow through on this battle station. Which
Yeah.
I mean, the Emperor does want the Death Star to be in existence.
Yeah.
I don't know at what point or how Krennic was given the authority, why the Emperor ever trusted him.
Well,
That
Krennic.
part I've not really figured out.
Well, because the Emperor had people trying to develop a super weapon.
Yes,
They had the plans for the Death Star initially,
from
right?
from Poggle
Right.
and the Genosians. Yeah.
And it was Krennic who made that connection of, well, here's this guy I know, Galen, who's doing all this energy research, and that's how we could plug a super weapon, which you've got these other teams trying to figure out, into these Death Star
But
plans.
it seems odd to me that the Emperor is not have him on much tighter of a leash
Krennic?
than it seems that Krennic has. Yeah.
You mean if he wants to put all the cards into the Death Star, or
Well, like I mean, the Emperor's like, you know,
or the Death
all
Star
in.
is his only
The Emperor is
hand?
all in on the Death Star. Like he wants that.
Yeah.
So from reading Catalyst and seeing Rogue One, how was Krennic ever given the long leash that he seems to have?
Does he have a long leash though?
It's hard to tell. Like it's.
I mean, his leash is basically just create the Death Star.
yeah,
know?
but I mean, it seems like he's just allowed to, I guess, put whatever he wants into the research and not have anyone really follow up on it either. Like
Yeah,
Galen getting
yeah.
all these things.
I don't know.
The bureaucracy of the Empire fell apart.
That's what I'm saying is everyone's just kind of wrapped up in themselves and their own heads, and that was the downfall.
Yeah.
You know,
Maybe.
like they trusted Galen too much. They weren't looking at the work closely enough to spot this flaw.
Maybe at that point it was so early in the Empire as well that they were still just trying to get a handle on how everything worked.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
confusing, but
Yeah.
but very interesting that, and I mean we mentioned this last episode as well, but how Rogue One completely changes, at least for me, like, you know, half of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Like everything that happens in the second half of A New Hope it's completely different now. The way you think about it
Yeah.
and the purpose behind
And
a lot of things,
not-
it's completely different than
Not
ever
for
before.
the worse.
No.
I think.
It's more explained and it
Yeah.
makes sense. And obviously when this has all been retconned into existence,
Yeah.
but you know, back then it was just
So it better
it was
makes sense.
yeah, it was a crazy sci-fi movie and it was like shoot the bullseye and
Yeah.
it blows up. Woo!
Shoot these space missiles into this hole,
Yeah, basically. But
this blowhole.
but how, and again we said this before, but just how well it expanded on everything from A New Hope without making it feel like they retconned it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, that's why that happened. That's why that worked. Duh.
Right.
Where have you been? Why didn't you know this? Like that's how everything that took place happened. You just didn't know it yet. This has just always been how it's been.
Right.
It was so seamless in piecing it together, and
they did a really good job.
That's what
I
love about it.
Yeah. That kind of leads me into I'm going to talk about this next. I saw this review about Rogue One that was saying it was bad because it lacked everything that the original trilogy had.
Saying like it just in general, Rogue One was bad.
Yeah.
Not parts of it were bad, but just it was a bad movie.
Yes. Because it lacked everything that the original trilogy had, which was specifically a good story, characters that you care about, and emotional connection to those characters in the story. And the story part of that, I disagree with that review because I think the story, if you think about what Rogue One is and where it's supposed to fit in this whole
purpose of Rogue One.
Yes. It's not, in my mind, it's not supposed to be this standalone, well, I mean, it's called a standalone movie, but standalone in the sense of it's its own property. Like if you took
it's not the same five characters again doing another mission and doing something crazy.
If you took the Star Wars part out of it, yes, Rogue One doesn't really make sense. Like if you just made just like a generic sci-fi movie, yeah, you're right. It doesn't really make sense. But that's not, I mean, the point of the movie is to fill this very specific spot in Star Wars history, you know? So
yeah.
If you think about it from a perspective of, well, if it was just its own thing, its own science fiction movie, it doesn't really make sense because that's not how it was made. That's not the point around making it. So that part, I don't know. I disagree with that. I do sort of agree, and I thought about this after watching it the second time. I sort of agree with the lack of characters that you care about and emotional connection to those characters.
Yes. And I was thinking about that as well when you mentioned it. We have, for the podcast behind the scenes, we have shared notes and we discuss things behind the scenes before the podcast. I was looking at that, and then I was thinking about how much they were describing the film as like a band of brothers Saving Private Ryan. And Saving Private Ryan is probably in my top 10 films. Yeah. I really love Saving Private Ryan. And when I think about that movie, there are some good characters within that group of guys. Like there's like the crazy guy and the strong guy, and then all the other guys. They all have very atypical guys, but they're all just kind of that one dimensional. Like, oh, he's that guy and he's that guy and he's that guy, and some of them die and some of them don't, and they make it through the movie, and they all work together for the purpose of the film. For the mission.
I sort of disagree with that because they're not like, say Ryan, for example, that story that he sits down in, they're in that, it was a French town, I think, or something.
Yeah, I guess.
Where they sit down and they're defending that one bridge and the Germans are about to come take over that tiny little town. Ryan sits down and he tells that story about him and his brother.
Yeah.
Remember that part of the movie? Where this whole point, Ryan has been this very one-dimensional, it's just this fucking guy we got to go save, and then we can all go home. But then he sits down and tells that story, and it's like, well, he's a person.
And that's what I was getting at is there's all these other characters, and almost everyone but Ryan was one-dimensional, and some of them die and some of them don't, and they're almost throwaway, but they make the movie.
Maybe. I still sort of disagree, but I think I see your
there's
point.
this group of, there's Jin and there's Cassian and there's K2 and there's Chirrut and Baze, and they're all, and I think I may have mentioned this last episode, but none of them they all had a purpose, but I wasn't super invested in the character.
No. Right.
To me, the Death Star was Ryan. Like the Death Star was its own character.
The Empire or the Death Star?
The Death Star itself was its own character where the story was expounded on more so than just the one dimensional of what we knew before. Where this is why the Death Star blew up. This is why the Death Star exists. This is what's happened with the Death Star, and they're trying to save the Death Star plans. Yeah. To me, it's like that. That's how I'm trying to relate it to Saving Private Ryan. It's like the plans and the Death Star building itself was Private Ryan, and that was the purpose of the film. The purpose of the film wasn't this team. The purpose of the film was to get the plans for the Death Star for the other movies that we already know about. So it didn't exist to have deep characters. Like, it existed to expand Star Wars.
Yeah, well, no, because it didn't exist to explain the Death Star, though.
No, I'm not saying just the Death Star, but it filled in, like you said, this very specific gap, this very specific lack of knowledge in Star Wars. And it did that very well, and it pieces perfectly into A New Hope and completely changes the way I look at New Hope now.
Right.
And I didn't need to extremely care about the characters for that.
I thought, though, especially when the movie ends with all of them dying, like, you want to feel something. You want to feel, and we kind of talked about this last episode, where it does give you a different perspective on the Alliance and all the sacrifices that have gone into making the Alliance what it is, and making it this, give it all or die trying, kind of puts a weight behind the Alliance that we didn't really have before. At least personally it did. But at the same time, like when Cassian fell, watching that, even watching it the second time, it was just like,
you don't care.
Oh, that happened.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't really know.
I was
him.
never invested in the characters.
Yeah. That's the part
more
that I agree with.
in K2 than probably any of the other characters.
the K2 I cared about the most, I think. But maybe just because it's Alan Tudyk and I know him from other places. But yeah, I felt like that part of the review I could agree with. There's all this background to these characters that are coming from other places, like the relationship between Krennic and Galen.
Like to be invested in Galen and Jen, you have to have read a book or done something else.
Yes, like Galen, I got, like, because of the little bit I've read of Catalyst and where I've seen elsewhere.
Made sense.
Yeah, like
you already cared about him because of that.
Like that first interaction, the first thing you see between Galen and Krennic there, like, it was like, yes, I totally get what's happening, and I understand the stakes here and all that, but only because I've read all this other stuff and like I have all this extra knowledge in my head.
Yes.
If you came at this outside of that, as not, maybe not even a Star Wars fan, you saw this, that wouldn't make any sense, and it wouldn't matter at all. Like,
maybe, it's hard
only from the perspective of, oh, this guy's after his wife and kid.
It's hard to think about it. I mean, because we are, as fans, so invested in the like other media and other stories and the other things that expand on the films.
Yeah.
That we have this pre-knowledge or even post-knowledge after the fact of things that we would not have known if we had just seen the movies. But most of the people that see these movies probably don't go into that other depth. So it's hard to even think about that because, going into Rogue One, like, okay, I knew there was this band of brothers, this group, this Rogue One team.
Yeah.
I expected them personally to all die.
Yeah.
Going into it, I'm like, they're cool, they have their purpose. Going into it, I already did not super care about them because I knew that what they were doing was the purpose, not me learning, not having deep characters or character development within the film wasn't the purpose. Their mission was the purpose, not them and their story was. So going into it, I was like, okay, I know Jen's story and Galen's story. Galen's story is more important to me than Jen's story. I don't care. I don't care what Jen went through with Saul. Really, I like Galen and Krennic. Like that's the cool part.
That's another point. Saul, I'll talk about that in a second.
And Saul has a crazy story. But like going into it, like Cassian's just a rebel grunt, and he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And he just wants to see this through. Bodhi is just some guy that got pulled in. Chirrut and Baze just kind of got pulled in.
Yeah.
K2 is awesome. And then Jen is doing this because she believes her father.
Yes.
So most of them, I'm like, all right, they're Bodhi and Baze and Chirrut are there to help. They're ancillary characters. They're going to die.
Real quick, there's a facet of Jen there, like, she's doing it, to help her father, but also because of all this, like what we learn in Catalyst, Galen had this separation from like galactic politics.
Yes.
And that's why Jin has been kind of out of it
Yes.
this whole time. But then she has that same moment that Galen has in Catalyst where she realizes, oh, wait, I actually do need to care and I need to make a difference here.
Yeah, I can do nothing and this is still going to happen.
Yes.
Or I can do something and maybe change it.
Right. So she has that same moment. So that kind of gives you a little bit of depth. But again, that comes from outside of the movie. That's not.
Yes. So like going into the film, like I knew, okay, most, if not all of them are going to die. And
right.
I expect all of them to die. And,
right.
I know that Chirrut, Baze, and Bodhi probably don't have a super importance to the story.
Right.
I know Cassian's going to be a little more important, and I know Jin is more important than all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But going into it again, it was like their mission was the important thing, not me caring about them, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah, only because you knew, like you're saying.
Yeah, because of what I know and what I expect to get out of it. I can't... It's hard for me to picture outside of that knowledge how that would feel, how the movie would feel to someone completely not in the know.
Yeah.
Or even like, I watched episode 4, weekly my entire childhood.
Right.
I know A New Hope like the back of my hand. Like,
right.
There are some people who maybe saw it once when they were a kid, and now new Star Wars movies came out, so maybe they watched it again, and now they're seeing in Rogue One.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have a care outside of the films, and they've just watched the film. So I can't imagine if they were expecting character development or expecting new characters to care about, or if they really knew what they were getting into. But
I see your point.
I can't picture that.
This is a movie for Star Wars fans, I think.
Yes.
That's your point.
That's what it felt like. Yeah. And
I completely agree with that. That's what I'm saying about the story.
Like Han Solo, the Han Solo prequel, like everyone knows who Han Solo is. They don't have to, because of the, kind of rebooting of the canon, they don't have to fill any holes with Han Solo. Like, we know Han Solo, we're just going to have his backstory now.
We all want to fill Han Solo's holes, but
everybody wants to just fill them up. But like, you know what I mean? Like, for people, even general fans, like, we know who Han Solo is, we know his character. All right, now we're getting the cool backstory of Han Solo. We don't have any expectations for that.
Yeah,
backstory.
You care about that character going into the movie. Anyone can.
Yes, you don't really have an expectation for that movie. You just want to find out what his backstory was.
Yes. And
obviously we as fans may think, maybe they'll have the Imperial background of him being being an officer or whatever.
Yeah.
But even that doesn't affect the film canon all that much.
Yeah, this specific story, I think,
but Rogue One was like, going into this is here to fill a gap in our knowledge of Star Wars fandom.
Yes.
Like, it was a Star Wars, a movie for Star Wars fans, made by Star Wars fans, to like just fill in that. It was almost like extra pages added to our dictionary of Star Wars. Yes, and it's
not like this movie is completely not worth seeing if you're not a Star Wars fan. No. It's still accessible. It's just not... It's not great.
It's going to mean less.
Yes. It's exactly.
It's going to mean less. Affect you in the same way.
It's not going to be a great movie like Force Awakens was, for example.
Yeah.
For people who aren't necessarily Star Wars fans.
Yeah, and you have all the Star Wars fans who are like, oh, it's just a rehash of A New Hope, but like new people who are just getting into Star Wars is like, oh, that's an awesome movie.
Yeah.
And and that's kind of been the thing of the trilogies, anyways. Is the prequels was to like get people back into Star Wars and pull in more younger audience, and the new ones is like, this is for everyone, the younger people, the older people. This is trying to please a lot of people.
Yeah,
and the trilogy films have always tried to be accessible, and I'm sure Han Solo will probably be more accessible than Rogue One, but Rogue One really did feel like, hey, this is for the fans, made by the fans, with like to fill in some specific knowledge that you were lacking.
Yeah,
that you are going to really appreciate having now.
And in one sense, that's amazing. Like the timing of it is amazing for us
as
who have been waiting for this moment for so long.
Yes.
But then on the other hand, the timing is a little unfortunate because it's coming off of Force Awakens, where
something accessible.
Yeah, like you're saying, was something that was made for getting new fans back in, and it's this story, not another story. This specific, very almost deep cut from Star Wars.
A lot of the little details and little things are very deep cuts. And
yes,
like even just including all of the rebels, like little things here and there, the little Easter eggs for Rebels. It's like it was very Star Wars fan centric.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of love for the fans. Which,
not that the movie has done poorly, because what was it? Last I checked, was that
I don't know,
250 million.
It's I mean, it's a Star Wars movie. It's gonna do well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that review, you could whatever. You can review it as just any other movie, but I think it's, from my perspective, those reviews just don't really make sense, because of all those reasons.
Yeah. So right now the Rogue
So basically,
One,
I saw something online and I got mad about it. So I spent an hour here talking about it.
the Rogue One domestic gross is currently 318 million.
Jeez.
Off a $200 million budget.
Wow.
Comparable. So if you compare that to like Dark Knight, which was 185 million budget.
Yeah.
So it's a higher budget, but of course Dark Knight did 530.
I wonder what Force Awakens was at this point.
At this point,
yeah,
because Rogue One's been out.
It's been a week now.
It's been
a little over a week.
It's been like 11 days, hasn't it?
Yeah, you're right. It's almost 2 weeks.
So comparable to Dark Knight, this is Box Office Mojo.
Yeah.
So the 11-day total of Dark Knight was 324 million, whereas Rogue One is 318 million. I don't think it'll have the legs that Dark Knight had, or even the legs that Force Awakens had, probably.
Right.
But it's not doing poorly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's already made a profit, so.
Yeah.
That's all they care
So
about.
yeah, it's not like people were like, oh, this is just a B-side film for Star Wars fans. Just
but
whatever.
that's a good point. I mean, it almost is a B-side.
Yeah.
Now, not B-side in the sense of it wasn't good enough to be a main movie, because that's not really the point of this movie, like what I was saying. But in a sense, it almost is like here's something we really love. We put a lot of effort into it. This one's for you guys. Yeah. I don't know.
So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to find out. After only a week, Force Awakens was at 500 million worldwide.
Oh, wow.
So it opened on a Thursday, and by there was a Saturday, and then the following Saturday after that, it was at a total gross to date of 496 million.
Jeez.
Well, I mean, The Force Awakens ended up at 2 million worldwide, or 2 billion worldwide.
2 billion, yeah.
Jesus,
that's insane.
Yeah. It was almost $1 million domestic and over $1 million.
What was the budget?
The budget for Force Awakens?
Yeah.
245 million.
Wow.
So they made.
What is that? 10 times. That's almost a little less than 10 times what. That's
they
insane.
made $1 billion more than over $1 billion, $1.5 billion more than what the film cost to make. I doubt Rogue One or anything in the near future will surpass Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Money, but it's not doing poorly. They've already made a profit on it, and I expect it to at least continue making money for.
I mean, as a fan,
month.
I'm completely satisfied. I've said that already.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's very well thought out. Everything about the story makes sense to me. Again, the characters are a little weak, but
like coming out of it, like out of it the night of, I was like, the characters were weak. I didn't go into it expecting that I didn't want to care about.
I did. Maybe that's why I'm so surprised. I expected to care about their sacrifice a little more, but it was almost didn't like so much.
But it felt okay by the end because their sacrifice was for a purpose.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm saying,
to me, it was like at the end, like, yeah, that's fine. That's what they wanted. That's why they did this. Like, I don't.
And they kind of understood that going into it, that it was going to be like that. Yeah, I agree. But
there were a lot more things I cared about coming out of the film that I didn't expect to care about compared to the characters. Like, I did expect more out of the characters, but by the time I had seen the movie, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that I didn't need to care about them because there was all this other stuff as a fan that was way more important than me caring about them.
Sure.
All the stuff with the Death Star and Darth Vader's castle and Darth Vader's castle.
Yeah.
Whenever we get more information on that, I will be happy.
Yeah, I'm wondering if because that was definitely Mustafar. So I'm wondering if it was it the Emperor who made Vader Like put that there, because that would be
to like harness his hate even
that'd
further.
be pretty messed
like
up.
the planet that he was chopped up on.
Yeah, that'd be pretty
I don't
messed
know.
up.
I want more information on that.
Yeah. Well, we've pretty much ran out of time here.
So it turned into another Rogue One podcast.
Basically, even though we said
Yeah.
that wasn't gonna be. Well, you know,
well, you mentioned something just to add a final note. Is you mentioned that one of Jin's stormtrooper guards on that like tank thing had an Australian accent.
So real quick, I mean,
Which I
this could be a whole discussion, but
Yeah.
maybe it's resolved, by something I just don't know about. But I picked up, so when Jin is being transported at that labor imperial camp, the Imperial Labor Camp on Wobani, I think it was called.
Mm-hmm.
Her
Which,
guard.
if you change the letters around, is Obi-Wan. Just
Yes.
continue.
Yes. Thanks.
Thanks, Reddit.
Oh,
Oh, I broke him. Jesus. Well, we have to buy a new mic now. That one's broken.
What was I saying?
I have no idea.
Her guard.
On Wobani, her guard had an
Her guard
Australian
on that
accent.
juggernaut, was. I heard he sounded like he had a slight Australian accent,
Which I guess
and-
technically isn't it supposed to be New Zealand? Isn't that where the guy's from?
or whatever,
yeah.
down there.
Down under,
Yeah,
right? Isn't that
that's
for
Australia.
the place?
It's Australian.
One of those under.
You're making my point.
one of
not
those
yours.
under down places.
Yes, down there somewhere. It was. So I was wondering. First of all, is that guy just like a leftover clone, and did they just stick him at a labor camp just to get rid of him until he dies?
How many
basically?
clones are actually left over?
Yeah, and two, how many clones are left over, and what are they doing with all those leftover clones?
Well, they didn't have a giant lifespan because they had accelerated lifespans.
Do you think any clones are still around? And I was just
How, in the timeline, how long is this after the Clone Wars?
well, what's his name is still alive? Was it Rex, the guy in Rebels?
And he
Or
was- well,
Commander Cody. Who was it?
I think that was Rex
Or Wolf.
in Rebels.
Was it Rex or Wolf?
I think it's Rex.
Was Wolf part of that gang too?
I can't remember. And
Anyway.
he looks to be in his
One of those
50s.
guys. One of those
Obviously,
guys.
accelerated lifespan. He's not been alive 50 years, but he looks to be in his older, like 50s.
And that's what, 5 years?
After the Clone Wars? How long is
No,
Rogue
5
One?
years before Rogue One.
Oh, before Rogue One.
Right? Isn't that what they were saying?
So there could be some old ones. I guess if they're just guards, just like...
Do you think they would just get rid of him, or?
I doubt it.
See, this is what I'm wondering. Am I just forgetting
At
something?
this point, they're probably just,
Has this been explained already
cheap labor.
in Rebels?
I haven't watched all of Rebels, to be honest.
It was an interesting thing to think about. Like, are they
Are
just
there
sticking
still
these
some around and they're
clones
just like in
these
know,
really shitty jobs
just,
now?
yeah, just like you're getting older, you
Right.
probably got a few years left because your accelerated lifespan just
Yeah.
to be on this prison, this work labor camp.
And I mean, something that went along with that was his armor was all like dirty and gross,
Yeah.
and you almost never see that. I mean, you really never see
Well, it's
that. I
just
mean,
like a labor camp in the middle of some dusty crap planet, like
yeah. So they really just don't care about this dude.
just that dude specifically.
This dude is just not high on their priority
Screw
list.
you in particular.
So I don't
yeah,
know.
maybe.
It was interesting to think about. Maybe this dude is just a
If
leftover
there's
clone.
still some clones left over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen for it. See if you can. You. I'm pointing at you, and then you, metaphorical you that's listening right now. You, the royal you.
Hypothetical you.
You, the royal you. I'm pointing at my
Oh,
microphone.
thanks.
I'm pointing at the screen.
Oh.
The people on the thing can see me, but
People on the internet.
yeah.
I wonder who did the voice of that guy. No.
It wasn't.
It
What's his
wasn't.
face?
It wasn't him. The clone trooper?
Yeah. What's his name? D. Bradley Baker. Is that the guy who did it?
No.
Wasn't D. Bradley Baker?
The actual Jango Fett?
Yeah. No, not that guy. No, the guy who did it on
Who
Clone
does the
Wars.
voices? Oh, probably. He does like he's in everything. Is either
I think he did. Well, he did Obi-Wan, right?
yeah.
And I think he did the Clone Troopers.
But he's not been the clone. Has he ever been the film voice?
No.
So I'm wondering who did the voice for the film. If it even matters, if that guy's even like supposed to be a clone trooper. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it was him.
To search through all of the credits to find like not Trooper.
Dirty Trooper number 1.
Dirty Trooper number 1.
Yes.
All right.
So anyway, that was it.
That's our second Rogue One episode in a row.
Probably the last one.
Probably.
We can start talking about episode 8 now.
Which,
by the way, we found out today. We missed some panels from Celebration Europe. Didn't listen to them, but we are going to see footage. Definitely going to see footage from episode 8 at Celebration Orlando.
Yes, I expect the same sort of teaser type item that we got for Rogue One at Europe.
I think we'll see more than that. Really? I think we're going to see a trailer like we saw for Rogue One.
Like a full.
We saw a trailer.
Yeah,
or not but they saw a trailer for Rogue One, right? It was like a pre-release trailer. Almost.
Yes, because the reports were that there was some unfinished footage in there too.
I bet we'll see something like that. Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
That's not really a teaser because it was like 2 minutes long, wasn't it?
Super awesome.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Yep. All right.
Well, I'm really excited.
Thanks, Charles. All right. So, if you ever want to send us questions or anything,
send us a review on iTunes.
Yes, reviews on iTunes.
We can really use it.
You can shoot us an email at
Hokey Religion. Nope.
That's
the old one.
Go back to sleep. Send us an email at asklobot@hokeyreligion.com.
Do we have an info at hokeyreligion.com?
We have a contact at hokeyreligion.com as well.
Do we have an admin at hokeyreligion.com?
We can make all of them. Why not? We'll have 57 emails. You can email addresses you can send emails to at hokeyreligion.com.
There's a Michael and Tyler.
There is a Michael and Tyler, so you can send us...
Not Michael and Tyler.
No, there's a Michael at Hokey Religion and a Tyler at Hokey Religion, and you can send us personal emails.
Yeah.
And
all of this goes to the same place.
Yep. And like that crazy guy before said, please leave us reviews on iTunes because it does matter.
He's back.
Oh, no.
Leave us a review on iTunes.
I already said. I told them again. Nope.
We need reviews.
Save your breath, literally.
No, it's hard. It's really hard to do it because it's not there in the first place.
Thank you. So yes, reviews on iTunes do matter. If anything else allows you to leave a review, do it there too, because why not?
But make sure it's a place where we can see it, or else it doesn't really matter.
Do we look at them?
Don't just put a review in for us and some other podcast.
Leave reviews for us on other podcasts on iTunes, as well as...
Although that would be really funny. You should do that and send us a screenshot.
All of our audio podcasts do go up
I gotta go, bye!
Jeez. Thank you for leaving. All of our audio podcasts do go up on YouTube, as well as we often try to record our recording sessions on YouTube if you feel like watching us record, because that's super interesting, but some people like that, so whatever.
I'm back now.
You can leave comments and whatever shit.
We have a subreddit too, apparently, which hasn't been updated.
It's been unused forever.
Which is odd considering we're everywhere else.
I post on Reddit, I just don't, our subreddit. I care not.
Just delete it.
Yeah, probably. I think that was all of the things. Oh, Twitter. You can go to Twitter at Hokey_religion because that one guy won't give us at Hokey Religion.
Still.
Tweet us, follow us, like, subscribe, comment. I don't know what are the things that you're supposed to say. And that's all I have for this episode.
It's me. And it's him. This has been us.
This is us for Hokey Religion.
Okay.
All right.
That's okay. Bye.
Go bye.
Hokey Religion is an ancient weapon. Weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side.
All right.
That's what we're missing. Something to spoon while we're recording.
There are two of us.